Okay, good morning. My name is Caitlin Leone, and I am a licensed social worker with WJCS, otherwise known as Westchester Jewish Community Services. And I want to welcome you to our fourth workshop entitled Parenting Through the Storm, Here and Now. Today we're going to talk about how to talk to our children and have conversations with our kids about coronavirus and how to start those difficult conversations and feel a little bit more confident when we're speaking to our kids about this difficult subject, as well as managing our own anxieties and stress around that. So before we get started, I want to make sure everyone knows that this is being recorded. So you're welcome to show your face or keep your video off if you'd like. If you're having any technical difficulties or can't log in through Zoom, you can absolutely, I put in the chat section that you can call in via conference call. The number is 646-558-8656, and you can call in and just listen via audio instead of participating in the video chat. So hopefully for those of you who can't hear me or might not be able to hear me, you can see it in the chat section to call in. I also included the link which to our the WJCS website, WJCS.com. If you click on news and you find the free online parenting groups, you will see that you can click on all of the past videos that we've had for the past month. We've had 3 live recorded videos, which are available via a YouTube link on our website. So you can absolutely go there and watch this again, or see the past ones if you've missed it. Trying to think of any other housekeeping I want to make sure you're aware of. I think that's it. Yeah, so I want to get started by just thanking everyone for being here. I know I've said that every time, but I know that it's a lot to take the time out, even if you're not here at 11 on Wednesdays with us. If you're watching later on, I appreciate you taking the time to do this both for yourself, for your kids, for your family, because it's obviously very important. And the reason why you're here is because I'm sure you agree with me that this is a tough time, but also a really important time to pay attention to ourselves and our kids in new and different ways, probably, right? This is a very new normal for all of us. So I'd like to start with just asking the people that are here to just type in the chat section if you're comfortable, where your place of residence and the age of your children. I'm going to type as well so that you can, it might pop up for you in case you're not sure how to do so. And then, yeah, if you're comfortable and you want to, you can click on the chat and just say the ages of your kiddos and possibly where you reside. And while you're doing that, I am going to share my screen with you and just let you know that any questions that you have, you can, I'm going to refer to them at the end, because once I share my screen and share my PowerPoint with you, I can't see the full Zoom conversation. So sometimes I miss out on some of those chats and questions. So I will absolutely refer to them at the end if you have any questions or comments or would like to add anything. So as I mentioned, we are parenting in the here and now. What does that mean, right? Right now, things are different. We are all in, very different times and trying to figure out how to navigate through this storm, which we have been talking a lot about, all different ways to do that. But today we're going to really specifically focus on those hard conversations that we have with our kiddos. So before we do that, I want to do our reminder, which we've done every week, that I started with you. The first week we did this is I gave you a to-do list that I have to remind myself, if not daily, at least weekly, to find 10 minutes a day, to challenge myself to find 10 minutes a day to practice mindfulness in whatever way that works, to find time for yourself, taking some self-care. If you need some ideas, you can refer to workshop number 1 to find some ideas on how to practice mindfulness for yourself, for your children, as well as finding time for yourself while you're stuck at home. and feeling probably more isolated than usual, right? Next one was meeting our basic needs. We need reminders to eat, sleep, exercise, get physically active. And the last one is to have that network, to be connected, to feel like we have someone we can go to, whether it's a parent group, whether it's referring to this every week, whether it's family, checking in on family members. I have mentioned many times doing Zoom conversations at night. I am doing weekly, if not twice a week, Zoom conversations and kind of like girls' nights or game nights with my friends and family. And that has been a way to keep me sane, as well as really have a network. We kind of, all the parents kind of vent for the first 15-20 minutes and talk about silver linings and kind of what's going well and what we're appreciating in this time with our families, and then what's really hard right now and how it changes from day to day and week to week. And then we just have fun and we don't talk about it anymore, and we play a game and we hang out and we try to just unplug from all the stuff that's going on a daily basis. So that's a reminder for if you can find time to do that every day. If not, at least every other, or to find, time to at least hit on 2 or 3 of those every day. Hopefully basic needs are being met, and the others we can fit in when we can. So difficult conversations. I think it's really important to start with talking about the elephant in the room, right? We find it as parents difficult oftentimes to have conversations. And this isn't just about coronavirus, right? For older parents, I am often talking to parents of my high school students who are afraid to have conversations with their kids about drugs and alcohol, about safe sex, about all different kinds of things that we either are uncomfortable with, we might not feel like we have all the answers, and we have our own fears and anxieties about those conversations. So it's important to recognize that these conversations are hard. That's why we're either not having them, or we don't know how to have them, or we're worried about it. So all parents go through that, no matter, kind of who we are, where we come from, and what age our children are. But I just want to really, point out that these are difficult conversations, which is why we're talking about it today, but that this can apply to all different kinds of topics and themes, not just around specifically coronavirus and our fears and anxieties currently. So like I said, why is it so hard? Because we don't always know all the answers. We might be uncomfortable with the topic or the theme and the questions that our kids might ask, the unknown, and then the fear and anxiety that we have about those things that we might be talking about with our kids. So talking to kids about coronavirus. The first one is dealing with our own anxieties and fear, right? Recognizing that this is going to be a hard conversation, or this may be a hard conversation, and that we might be anxious or worried or fearful about this stuff. Feelings are contagious, and children will feel the panic and out of control that we feel if we're not calm and able to really feel ready to deal with the conversation that we're going to have with our kiddos. So that might be having those connections, right? Touching base with other parents who are going through this and being able to, if not talk to a partner or a family member in your home, make a phone call to a family member or a friend who might be going through the same thing. We're all having fears and anxieties right now specifically. So I'm sure you can find someone who can relate and connect with, so that you can get all that out and kind of hash through it before you have those conversations with your kiddos. And then, last but not least, to wait until you're more calm and ready. Sometimes you're not ready, right? They ask before you even start that conversation, and hopefully by us talking about this, you can kind of feel more ready and able to deal with it, and the mindfulness stuff and the self-care, that's going to help us calm down on a daily basis if we can really incorporate that into our daily routine. And I'm sure lots of you have already had these conversations with your kids. I recognize we're almost, at least 2 months in. For most of us, we're at least 6 weeks into staying home with our kids. And depending on the age of your kids, different conversations are happening. It might have taken longer for some kids to start asking questions, but I'm sure you've had these conversations already, but they are going to be ongoing. And dealing with our anxiety and fear first is our first step. Second piece is that kids worry more when they are kept in the dark. Um, Not talking about something can actually make kids worry more, right? So sometimes when we don't want to talk about things, we think if we don't talk about it, the kids won't worry about it. But they're going to overhear us on the phone. They're going to see people in the news and media, even commercials that come up, right? So even if we don't have the news on with our kids, if they're watching another show and commercials come on, they're going to see these things. You can't keep them away from the news, the media, and seeing how life is different, right? Even if you take a walk or you take a ride in the car, kids are going to see how things are so different out there in the community. They're going to see people walking around with masks. Things are closed down. Their schools are not open. So they know this is going on, and the less you talk about it, the more that fear can actually continue, and it makes them worry more that they're not having those conversations with you, and then they're worried about you too, right? Kids worry about their parents all the time, and fear is not healthy for development. It limits learning and striving. And as parents right now, right, we're sitting at home with our kids doing the e-learning piece as well. So we might notice the focus and the patience, their abilities might be more limited because they're just home and they're not at school with their teachers who they're used to doing this with. But when they're stressed and they have and their fear is very high, it makes it much harder to focus, and it can limit their learning. So that's kind of, again, more of that foundation and the bottom line in order to be able to help kids move on throughout their day. The third piece is taking cues from children and being developmentally appropriate when we're having these conversations. We've talked about this when we were talking about some more things about how to listen to our kids in the past workshops, and how to not set expectations too high depending on the age of your kids. But asking more and talking less goes for all ages. You don't want to volunteer too much information because it can be overwhelming. Kids might not want all of the information you're ready to provide, and you feel like, oh, the more information I give them, the better they'll feel. But maybe they're not thinking all of those things. So you might want to start by asking questions, what they know, what they may have heard from friends, or what they hear mommy and daddy talking about, or what they're worried about, or questions that they might have. And then to try to clear those up, right? Things that you at least feel comfortable that you know about, you can correct. That's why I have that fake versus fact. Don't want them hearing from other people and then not being able to check in with you. And as we've mentioned many times, parents are their kids' first learners, or first teachers, excuse me. We learn a lot from our kids too, right? They're our teachers, but we are their first teachers, and we want them to be able to come to us when they are needing to clear up things. And so honesty is our best policy, as well as being clear, concise, and confident in answering their questions, and letting them know that we're here when they need to ask again, or they come up with something else that they want to check out or clarify with us. We've talked about navigating feelings. So when we name our feelings, we can tame them. And to help our kids, we got to stop, listen, and name those feelings, right? So for younger kids, they might not really know what they're feeling, and sadness might look like anger, or fear might look like, inattention, right? And they're more hyper or less able to focus because all of these other things are going on in their head, and they really can't clear their mind and be able to sit and do an activity for school or listen and get through their day. And then to make sure you aren't afraid to say, I don't know. Parents feel like they need to have all the answers for their kids, and sometimes that means we either give them an answer that might not be completely accurate, or we might reassure them about things that we don't know specifically. So role modeling for them and letting them know when we don't know things is important too, because there's lots of things going on right now that we don't know, right? We're trying to figure out what we can trust, what we see in the news, the articles we read, and there's a lot of unknown about all of these things right now. So it's important that when we don't have the answer, we say, I don't know, instead of coming up with something else or trying to avoid the question, right? I also wanted to point out these These points I'm taking are really from the Child Mind Institute, which I've mentioned many a times. It's a great resource. You can absolutely follow them on Instagram or check out their website. And I've pulled every one of these bullets from their different articles that they've talked about on how to speak to kids about the coronavirus. So I just want to give them a shout out and let you guys know that this is a great resource for all different things, parent related, but also specifically during this time. So then be reassuring. That goes without saying, but sometimes we think being reassuring, we are being reassuring when we're talking to our kids, but sometimes it's hard to really realize what the difference is between those things. So, children often believe they're very egocentric. So they think this is going to happen to them. They think it's going to happen to their family. They worry about their parents getting sick. They worry about their grandparents getting sick. So maybe they're hearing that older people are getting this, or getting, more severe symptoms, and they're worried about those things. So it's important to explain to them what we're doing to prevent this, how we're being careful, how maybe your family members are being careful. Maybe that's not why we're not able to see grandma and grandpa as often as we usually do. And, let them know that it is not as likely as it seems right now that they will get sick, that children have lower percentages of getting sick, milder symptoms, if you're comfortable with sharing those things with them. If you don't feel, that strongly in some of those things, that's okay, because maybe we don't have all that information. But for right now, what we do know is that we're taking all these precautions to preventing kids, family from getting sick, right? That's why we're staying home. That's why we're not going to school right now. It's not why we're not visiting friends. And to let them know that we're taking those precautions so that they know that we are doing something to stay safe, and reassuring them that they are here and they're safe with us. So we're going to focus on what we're doing to stay safe when we're reassuring them. Kids feel empowered when they know what to do to keep themselves safe. That's why schools, before they were closed, were really reiterating the hand washing, and not touching your face, touching surfaces when you're out, covering coughs, catching your coughs and sneezes in your elbow. All of those things that you can reassure to them that these are the things that we're doing, that we can do to keep ourselves and the people around us safe. So definitely to kind of circle back to the safety piece and letting them know what they can do and take control. We talked about focusing on the things that we can control right now when we feel like there's so much out of our control, and that we can give kids control back too by talking about those things. Sticking to a routine. I know I'm a broken record with this. I've probably mentioned this many times already, but sticking to a routine right now is extremely important. Routines help kids know what's coming next, and they thrive on that structure. We talked about how school is very structured. They know what to expect. They know what they move into after morning meeting. They know when their specials are, what time lunch is, recess comes first. Then we go back to our classrooms. All of those things are very structured. We will not be able to provide that for our kids right now, but we can take pieces from that and incorporate into our day. And maybe it's not every day, right? We're working from home, so we have meetings during the time we usually do school time. Or maybe, at-home recess isn't going to work because it's not a great day outside and you don't have the space to do it inside. But you can really focus on having a normal bedtime, maybe a normal wake up, and same time of, for mealtime every day, and maybe a same amount of school, if it's, an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, depending on the kid, or 2 hours in the morning, as well as, like we said, age appropriate, depending on their age and how long they can sit and focus on an activity. Taking brain breaks. I think I've mentioned in the past about 20 minutes is what should be good for kind of all school age kids, to take a 20-minute brain break, pick what they want to do, and then come back so that they can refocus. And getting outside and limiting screen time. I'm sure I'll get lots of eye rolls with this one because we all are having a lot of guilt around the screen time right now. But if we can find new and different ways to limit the screen time, to not use it as a constant, right? So even though we might need our kids to be on the screens for school for while we're working from home, that's okay. We need to do that right now. But maybe I think I've mentioned in the past, not using screens, unplugging when you're having your 20 minutes to a half hour of undivided attention that you're spending with your kid every day, whether it's doing a puzzle, whether it's playing and, focusing on play and just taking that time out to be with them, turning off the TV, unplugging. Or it might be, not having screens or TVs on or phones at the table during mealtime and sitting together and having a mindful eating meal, whether that's 1 time a day, 2 times a day, or 3 times a day. But if you can pull off 1 time a day, that's a start, okay? And then keep talking. So having this conversation once, like I said, I'm sure lots of us have already had these conversations with our kids, and they've already been asking questions, and maybe we've dealt with some and not others, but that every day this is changing. So we can't make promises. We shouldn't make promises we can't keep. Like, I'm going to find out that answer and get back to you, right? Or I'll get back to you and then not. So we have to make very clear and conscious decisions in terms of what we're promising our kids. So number 1, maybe you don't want to promise, besides the fact that I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe and protect you. It's my job. I am your parent and it's my job to keep you safe, and I will do everything I can to do that. Or, the promises that we don't want to keep, like, we'll be back to school, before the end of the year, or, things that we really don't know right now. We don't want to give our kids, false hope or answers that we don't have. So we want to reassure them that we'll update them as things change, right? Like last week, I told you you'd be back to school at the end of April, or that's what they said, but now they changed it to May. Hopefully now, as parents, we're realizing that maybe we don't want to give our kids the date, but that we don't know yet when we're going back to school, because it keeps changing. And, I did that with my 6-year-old, and I was like, okay, March 31st, then it was April 15th. And I haven't given him the May 15th date now, because it just keeps changing. And he was, counting down days, and I kept saying, we're going to see what happens now in May. And, but now it's kind of like, we're not sure yet. We're hoping soon, but that doesn't mean that we're promising anything, right? You can let them know, you're asking great questions. I'm sorry I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. But right now, I know that you're here and you're safe with me. And like I said, I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. Let them know that they can continue to ask questions as they come up, if something else they think of later on in the night or next day, next week. And like I said earlier, you can, let them know that even if you don't have all the answers right now, you will get back to them when you know more. And do circle back and let them know. If you're going to tell them you're going to get back to them, get back to them. And if you didn't find out the answer, say, you know what? I looked into it. I don't have it now, but if I find out, I'm going to let you know. But if you tell them you're going to let them know, definitely circle back and talk to them about that. Dr. Barber Stroud I put her website on the bottom of this screen. She is actually a great resource who I happened upon through all of the emails that I've been getting. She posted a video on YouTube about a quick 20-minute video, more about kind of the trauma and the developmental piece of children right now when it comes to these difficult, stressful times. And she's worked with Common Sense Media. I found her on a couple of different places. So she's a great resource, definitely for kids 0 to 5. And I watched her 20-minute video, so I pulled a few things that I wanted to share with you when you are in these conversations with your kids to be aware of. So children need to feel safe, seen, heard, and helped, right? A person is a person no matter how small, meaning it doesn't matter, if you're talking to adults or you're talking to kids, no matter what age they are, they need these things to be able to thrive, to be able to function, and to be able to cope and become more resilient, which is, some of the things that we've spoken about what we can do to help build our kids' self-worth, their confidence, and help them become more resilient so that when this is over, they can go back out into the big world and be able to cope with things that are hard and move through life in a more healthy way, right? So when she talks about safe, she explains why emotional support is so important. We started by saying we need to get emotional support for ourselves, right? Connecting with people, finding ways to take care of ourselves, our own mental health, our physical health. and finding a network that we can connect with to get that emotional support. And then we need to be the people that are providing that emotional support to our kids. We can reassure them that they're safe even when they're scared, right? So they might say, I'm scared, or I'm angry, I can't see my friends, or I wish I can do those things. And not to take those feelings away, but to let them know that even though we're scared, we know that we're safe here at home. We know that we're doing everything we can, like we talked about, right? The washing the hands and all of those pieces. Talking about things you can do, places you can go, and always the helpers. I referred to the helpers in my last workshop. Mr. Rogers said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. So I know there's a lot of focus on that in the media right now. You can focus on those positive things, those silver linings, write notes of gratitude to essential workers. My son wrote letters, or like made little posters, and we taped them just on our door so that when the UPS and the postal workers drop off boxes, they can see our thank you notes. We drew rainbows in chalk outside. You can put a rainbow in your window if you don't have a driveway or a main front door that people will see. These are all things that kids can take action and feel like they're doing something to help, to be the helpers as well, and also to thank the helpers that are doing such good work right now. And then letting children know that they're seen. You're validating and supporting them, letting them know that you hear that they're feeling certain ways and that you're not kind of ignoring that, right? So children will respond differently to those in different ways. So some kids are going to do find themselves, we call them attention-seeking behaviors, but I'd rather refer to them as emotional outbursts, right? They need to feel seen and heard. And you may notice with certain kids that it's, crying, just random outbursts, them going from 0 to 10 really much quicker than usual. They may have trouble sleeping, have more fear of maybe the dark or monsters. There might be more fears coming up in different ways. Some kids might isolate more or just become much more quiet and less talkative. And then you might see the aggression and irritability. So letting them know that you see that this might be a sign of something else, right? Depending on the age of the kid, you talk about it differently. I referred to speaking to my little one about him, becoming really physically aggressive a couple weeks ago and saying, I feel like maybe you're not so mad, but sad. What do you miss about not going to school every day? He's in a daycare preschool program, but what do you miss? And what do you wish you could do right now? And also role modeling. Like, I miss not being able to see my students when I go to school every day. Mommy misses not being able to, whatever it is that you miss. If it's work or dropping them off at school every day, picking them up from the bus, things like that, to kind of role model so that they can kind of figure out what they miss, because they might not really know when they're at those younger ages, kind of what those feelings are and why. And then feeling heard. So that's that active listening we talked about, right? Responding, not reacting to our kids. And a great example of that is to encourage them to tell their story. When I said ask questions, you can ask kind of, what have you heard, right? What do you want to know? But sometimes kids don't know what they've heard, or you kind of get nothing when you ask something like that. But if you ask more open-ended, specific questions like, how has it changed your life? What do you miss the most since, we've been quarantining at home? Or, what do you want to do when this is over? So I actually asked my son last night what he wanted to do after, when this is over. And I asked him to name his top 3 things. And we kind of just went around the dinner table and said what our top 3 things are, what we want to do when we can finally go do them. And, it provides, kind of a forward thinking, and it provides hope, which I'm going to kind of get to a little bit more about that. Navigating feelings, I mentioned naming those feelings, talking about them, letting them know that it's okay to have these feelings, and then maybe sharing what your feelings are. You're sad, I'm mad that we're stuck home, or I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I wish I could do the things that I do, that I used to do, right? So role modeling as well can also help them if you feel like they're not able to do it for themselves. And then making them feel helped. empower them with information. Like I said, maybe not always too much information. Ask them, what do you need from me, or how can I help you? And then remember that you're not fixing the feeling. So when they tell you that they're scared, they're afraid that you're going to get sick, or that a grandparent is going to get sick, or they're going to get sick, you let them know that those fears are okay. So not to say, oh, don't worry about that. That's for adults to worry about. You don't have to worry about those things, because they do, right? And then maybe they won't tell you when they are feeling worried or upset about something, and you can't take it away from them, but you can tell them, like we said, about the safe things, the things that they can do, and what everyone's doing to take care of themselves, providing them support and self-calm. And that is by that, making sure we're calm and ready to have those conversations, listening, using those active listening skills, and really letting them know that it's okay to feel that way, but then providing the hope, because hope is healing, and letting them know that this will end, and make that plan to look forward to once it is over. Those things that I said, name 3 things, your top 3 things you want to do once we can get out and about again, right? And things go back to a little bit more normalcy. This is developing emotional coping skills, right? By helping them kind of look forward and outside of this, that there is an end, that this is not the only thing that we need to focus on, and that it will build resilience. So my son, asked me the other night, I think I said, like, when this is all over, we'll go do this, or we'll make sure we do that, or when you get back to school. And he said, well, what if it doesn't end? What if people don't stop getting sick? And that's a hard question, right? Because we don't know when it's going to end, but we do know certain things, right? I talked to him about people that are working so hard to find vaccines, and to make sure that, Governor Cuomo, he sees him on the TV, he knows, he says, why is he always so serious? So we talk about why he's so serious, and what he's talking about, and how he's taking his job really seriously to protect all the New Yorkers. And so that might mean, wearing face masks in public and all of those things. So, I told him that it will end, but I don't know when, and it might be longer than we want. It's already longer than we want, but we hope it will be over soon, but we just don't know yet. But that things will change. It's not going to be like this forever. And then I just want to kind of recap, kind of a summary of all of the things that we've covered in our last 4 weeks together, is remembering to role model that self-care, the mindfulness activities, getting physically active, and communicating, whether it's with the people in your house, the adults in your house, the family outside of your home via Zoom or FaceTime, and the communication that you're doing with your kiddos. Keeping calm, remembering those active listening skills. You can go back and check out those slides from a week or 2 ago. Naming feelings, number 1, when you're feeling them, and also when your kiddos are feeling them. And then the importance of play. We talked a lot about that last week, and why play is is healing. It reduces stress, and it's really important for kids to play out some of their fears or the realistic situations, and kind of experiment through play. So when your child has a hard day, they don't ask, can we talk? Instead, they will ask, will you come play with me? So play as part of your day is always a really big, important piece to put in there. And that can be that mindfulness activity that you do with your kid, where you unplug, and it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour if you have it, of just focusing your attention on them. And then using positive language, and like I mentioned before, responding instead of reacting to these difficult situations and challenges. I have our helpful resources, which I've provided at the end of each workshop. But I want to just note that I've added the Westchester Library System, which actually, thankfully, one of our participants in the first workshop reminded us of, that the Westchester Library, your local libraries, are providing a whole bunch of different options for kids of all ages. And I actually looked on, we talked about the story times and kids yoga through the White Plains Library, but I wanted to mention that there's a virtual calendar on the White Plains Library site for both kids and teens. So I would encourage you and your kids to check it out as a way to be able to find some good, fun things, activities, resources. I think they're having some like live chats that all teens can kind of tune into and talk to each other and connect as well, because that's super important for them. And then just to note one more time, that 60-day free trial of Noggin, where they have their smart schedule up right now with a way to learn through play at home for younger kids that maybe don't have e-learning. So kids, before grade school, pre-K or 3 and under, to log into that and possibly find some great ideas for yourself. And you don't have to pay for the app right now. The local resources are the same as the previous weeks, of just ways that you can connect if you feel like you need additional support or there's somebody in your family that might need them as well. And last but not least, I just want to say thank you all for being here. We have completed our 4th workshop, and I am going to stop sharing my screen so that I can just check if there's any questions. Just going to open it up to anyone. If you have a question or want to add anything about maybe something that's been challenging or what might have been helpful to you in the past few weeks, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. There's actually like a raise hand button if your video is not up, or you can just wave and I should be able to see you in the video. So if there are no questions or anything you wanted to add, I did want to mention that the upcoming workshops are actually going to be geared toward teens. So next week we're going to start with mindful parenting, and that is going to be focused around adolescence. So we're going to have some guest speakers joining us over the next few weeks, which is exciting. And I hope that you tune in, and or like I said, refer to our website, and you can watch any of the prior ones that I've referred to in this workshop, as well as this one will be up in the next few days. And join us again. The link is up as well, so that next week at 11 we will be live again. And I will just say thank you and have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye guys.